Welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the lovely Marie McAneney. And today we are going to talk about her book, which is actually called Finding My Way Back to Me, The Pathway to Authenticity, or The Path to Authenticity, if I'm being completely correct. And I've been dying to talk to you and find out more about this path and the book that you're writing. And it's my pleasure having you here today, Marie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Barbara. It's so lovely to be here. I'm really, really honored to be talking to you this morning for me. Yes.
Yeah, because we have a unique position. For Marie, it's really early in the morning, and for me, it's quite late in the evening. So don't you just love the internet, where you can connect to beautiful, wonderful, like-minded people from all over the world and have these wonderful conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great pathway.
Right? Yes. And yeah, as you all know, if you're a regular listener to our show, and if not, then please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you never miss another episode again. But my business is also all about authenticity. So in that regards, Marie and we found each other, and I'm dying to find out more about what was your inspiration for your book, Marie?
Oh gosh, well, I've been wanting to write a book for quite some time, and I didn't really know what it was going to be about. But this year, I was inspired to actually start writing my book. And I thought, well, what am I going to write this book about? You know, I had no clue really. And then it just came to me. And it was all about how I've, had what I've had to do to find my way back to me. And it's all about being authentic. So that's the name of the book, Finding My Way Back to Me, The Path to Authenticity. And that's exactly was the title of my book. And it wasn't any more simple than that, really.
I love it. And it just came to you, basically.
Yes. Yeah, intuitively, which has been the last part of my year, sitting in the most vulnerable yet intuitive part of finding my way back to me, really.
Exactly. So before we dive into how that works, how you find yourself, a way back to yourself, and what the path of authenticity looks like, it might be a good idea to dive first into what does life look like when you're not being authentic, or what did life look like for you when you were authentic? What were some of the common things that you were experiencing or maybe even struggling with in your life?
Yeah, well, I was probably not being the most truest version of myself. For many years, I was a nurse, for 30 years, actually. And I loved that nursing career. But then there was a moment when I realized I was just so much more than that. And that was my purpose for a while, helping people and doing those things. But I was not feeling fulfilled anymore. And I've always had this yearning in my heart that there was something more for me to do. Nursing was the catalyst for who I am today, and has brought me to the person I am today and given me the skills that I need to be. But it also taught me a lot about myself and what I was accepting in my life, and I wasn't being the most truest version of myself. But I didn't know that at the time.
So what showed up when you were not being yourself? What finally made you take notice?
Well, I was in a senior nursing position, and I was being bullied, or so I thought I was being bullied. I mean, I was being bullied at the truest sense of that, but I thought I had no control. I felt I had no control over the way these people treated me. And I didn't have any control over the way they treated me, but I did have control over the way I reacted and what I said to these people and how I showed up. But I was so frightened to say anything, to speak up. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm a leader to these other team of people that I had, yet I couldn't stand up to these more senior leaders and speak my truth and stand up for my team. And I that was my kind of turning point. And that was about 10 years ago now.
Mhm.
And I realized, wow, I just I can't live like this. This is not being the most truest version of myself. So I went off and did a little bit of coaching. I went to do a coaching course. And I thought that I was doing that to be a better leader and stand up for my team and do that. But what I found along the way was myself. I found myself and I found my voice. And I realized that I wanted to help other people stand in their power and
Mhm.
realize that they didn't have to be somewhere that they didn't want to be, I guess.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I recognize that. It's a big part of my why as well. But I can also imagine that that didn't come overnight, right? So how long did it take you and to realize that you were not being yourself, and what made you realize that you were not being yourself?
Um, it was just the soul feeling, this real gut feeling that there was so much more to what I could do. And as I started to find my way, and as I started to go within and discover who I really was, that was when I realized that I had so much more to offer in terms of helping others to be true to themselves. And at first, I started to do that in the nursing world, and how I interacted with others. But I've always been a very spiritual person, and there were so many things that I wanted to introduce, but I didn't feel like I could do that in the professional kind of nursing world.
Mhm.
I did try with a business called Heart of Nursing to start with, and helping and empowering people. And then it was just like that was one defining moment back back in 2011 that started me on the path to where I am today.
Mhm.
And so there was a few things along the way. Uh, Going out there and having my business and helping nurses, that was great, and I was doing kind of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't exactly sitting right with me, and I knew. So COVID kind of came along, and I went back into nursing for a bit because I left to do my business, then went back in,
Mhm.
and then I learned a few more things. And it was all about having my voice and standing up for myself.
Mhm.
And it was, I guess it was so much more than that. It was also around people not living the most authentic lives in terms of feeling dissatisfied, not feeling happy in the place that they're in, and thinking that they can't create a change around it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I had to take that leap of faith. Sorry, interrupted.
no, it's okay.
Mm.
I recognize what you're saying. I have a lot of my clients who tell me, well, I'm supposed to be happy. I have a wonderful
Yes.
partner and we have a house together. I have a good job that pays the bills. Sometimes they have children, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have pets, sometimes they don't. So they, in general, tell me, I'm supposed to be happy, right? I have everything that everybody always says that you are supposed to have: great partner, job, house, kids, pets, but I'm not. And I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed to admit it.
Mm.
And I
Yep.
also don't really know why. Why can't I just be satisfied? I constantly feel like, is this really all there is to life? This can't be all
Hmm.
there is to life, right? There needs to be something more. Was that also some of the things that you might recognize from your journey?
Yes, absolutely. There was all of those things. And the people that I work with today have exactly the same thoughts. And I say to them, you're just not following your heart. You're not
Mhm.
being true to yourself. There's something that you are yearning to do, and you're not following that because you're either too afraid to step out, or there's just so many things. And for me, that's what it was. Probably way back when I started my Heart of Nursing, that's when I wanted to create the change, but it took me probably another 5 more years to do that. So yes, it was a long process, and I realized that the people that are coming to me and seeing me, I'm just opening up that pathway for them, giving them a different perspective, giving them permission, if you will. And I guess I was waiting for permission to say yes to me.
Mhm.
And that came a year ago, actually. I was getting all these signs, 11:11, so many signs from spirit to tell me it's time.
Mhm.
I was afraid. I was afraid to step off that cliff because I was financially earning quite a good wage. And if I was to be completely honest, that was the only thing that was holding me there. That was it.
Yeah, I recognize what you're saying. I've gone through the same sort of process, and I see it also with everybody that comes to me for help
Mm,
and guidance. And it usually is around fear. It usually starts with the fear of not being wanted, not being accepted. So we
mhm.
try to people please, or we try to turn ourselves into a version of ourselves that we think other people would like or would want to be friends with. And the more we try to turn ourselves into someone we are not for whatever reason, the further away we get from our real self, but also from
Mm,
feeling what we really want to do in life, what really lights us up, what really sparks us. So I see a lot of people going into the family business because it's the family business
mm.
and they're expected to be in the family business, although it's not their thing, and they want to please the family. Or
Yeah.
I see people who are very focused on the brain and think, well, this is a career that has a lot of job opportunities. So that when I'm done with school, I actually also have a job and I can probably earn a high salary. Looking at it very practical, very logical, and
Mhm.
from a sense of, well, is this really what lights me up? If I think
Yeah.
about doing this for the rest of my life, do I think, yay, or do I think, ah,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
right?
And you know what? Nursing for me did light me up once upon a time. It really, really did. And I don't want to diss on my career. It was the most wonderful career that I've ever had. But I see it as preparing me for who I am today and the work that I do now.
Mm.
And it so many people, like I had a conversation just last night with a young girl who was like, I'm not going to be a paramedic now. I only ever wanted to do that. I don't even like people, she said. Why do I want to be a paramedic? She said, you know why I wanted to be a paramedic? I wanted to be a paramedic so that everyone else would be proud of me. But she said it's not what I want. She said what lights me up is working with animals. And she is the most wonderful person with these animals. She absolutely is. And I said to her, that's exactly right. What lights you up? And the things that I do now, this last year, I've had the most wonderful year of being creative. My creativity, I think, is the thing that lights my soul up the most. And whatever way that I can use my creativity,
Mhm.
that's what I like to do. And working with people through all the avenues that I have, and I've become so much more creative, just tapping into that just lights my soul on fire, much like this young girl's soul is lit on fire when she works with animals. And yes, for what purpose would you want to be a paramedic when you don't even like people? Like, you know.
You're already explaining one of the reasons, that because other people see that as a career for someone, or because you don't really know who you are. And that also
Mm,
happens often, that you choose something based on whatever reason, but not because you really know yourself and really know what
yeah.
lights you up. And usually it's a mental thing and we sort of convince ourselves, but it can also be peer pressure or societal pressure,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know how it's in Australia, but in the country where I grew up, we have unemployment benefits, and the organization that's behind it pushes people to take any job that wants them, the first job that
Yes.
wants them. And you're forced to apply for jobs every week, which on the one hand, I understand, but none of it is motivated by finding the right job for the right person that gives them
Yeah.
energy instead of draining them.
Absolutely. And I think back to my nursing, it was absolutely the right passion and job for me when it was. But there's so much political oh, stuff, I want to say, and that goes on in the background, especially when you get to a management level. And I felt that I just wasn't being the most true truest, authentic version of me in those moments when I was asked to do the things that I was asked to do as a manager. And I thought, I can't do this anymore because I'm not being who I need to be in those moments, and I can't be the leader I need to be because of all of the hierarchical political stuff that goes on at that level. And so I felt in my heart that I just wasn't being that. Actually, I had about 3 or 4 months where it was like, oh, I just need to go back and be a nurse, because for so long that was my identity.
Mhm.
And then I realized, oh, I'm caring in a different way, in the way that I want to, the way that lights me up, from
And
the
you made
truest,
an
most
excellent
authentic
point.
part of me. Mm.
And that is also something I experienced. I started out as a web designer, web developer, then programmer. It's something I really love because, like you, I'm very creative. So it allowed me to express my creativity. I'd actually started interior decorating, but couldn't find a job in that. And most people think, how did you end up there? But it's very similar. Everything's about
Mm.
color and placement and stuff. But I couldn't handle the political games that are being played in the business because
Mm.
I am not someone who plays games for whatever reason. I don't kick down, kiss up just to get ahead at the expense of my coworkers, but a lot of people do. And there is also a lot of things going on with um, um, hand above head holding, or making sure that the other one gets ahead, and then it's wash your back, you wash mine back, something stuff. And
Yeah.
these games are just, it's not me. And I don't want to be a person that does these things in order for my career to advance to a level that I'd like it to be in. So inevitably, I came to the conclusion that I felt working live, and especially political games within businesses, is just not an environment that feeds my soul.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're talking about there, is exactly the same way as I felt. Yeah, I'm all for bringing people up, not pulling people down. And gosh, there's so much gone down in nursing with COVID and everything.
Mhm.
It's an extremely hard career to be in at the moment. There's
Yes.
so many nurses leaving, they're dissatisfied, and for a lot of the reasons, similar reasons that I was, really. But you know what? I think there needs to be a big shift, and it's not just nursing. There's so many areas of all sorts of careers out there where people are feeling dissatisfied because
Yes.
they're not being the most truest version of themselves. And so that's that soul trying to say to you, look, you're not following your true north. You're not living the life that you're meant to be living here.
Mhm. Exactly. And that
It's
feeling.
about having that awakening to that.
Yeah,
And more people are waking up now.
exactly. It feels like a dissatisfaction with
Mm.
what you're doing, and usually also very confusing because you don't
Mm.
know what it is that's happening or what it is that you're
Yes.
missing. But you do feel there needs to be something. You cannot name
Mm-hmm.
it. Something is usually what I hear from my clients. And it's the first step into becoming aware of, um, well, that you're not living your purpose, your soul
That's
path,
right.
right?
Exactly.
And so your book title starts with finding myself back to me.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself back to you?
Well, like I said, it started. uh, I didn't even know who I was. I didn't know who Marie was. I wore so many hats. I was a mum, a daughter, a wife. But who was I at the very core? What was it that Marie liked? What was it that lit me up when I wasn't a mother, a daughter, a wife, a nurse?
Mhm.
What was it? And I'm still discovering that. I'm still finding my way back to me every single day. And I think that a year ago when I left nursing, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't that.
Mhm.
You know? And then I was doing all sorts of things with crystals, oils, all of those things. And I was just trying to define who I was in the space that I was working in. And one of my friends, and I did a course a $39 course about a social media course. And one of the things was to ask the people that were coming to you who you are, you know. So I said to one of the girls that I'd met, one of my clients, well, so who am I? You know, and she said, because I had something about on my tagline, oils and crystals, and she said to me, Marie, you are so much more than oils and crystals. And the reason why I remember this is because that was the catalyst for going within even further and going, oh my gosh, I am. But if I'm so much more than oils and crystals, then who am I?
And
Because
that
people would say to me, who are you and what do you do? And I'm like, well, I make crystals, I do this, I do that. I could tell them all about what I did, but saying who I was, that was another different kettle of fish.
That's the $1,000,000 question. And I recognize what you're saying. When I ended up in my severe burnout in 2010, I also lost my boyfriend of 7 years. I lost his family, who had become my family. Most of our friends were also his family. So I lost everything in that moment. And I remember thinking that I didn't even know what lighted me up. I had so molded myself around him. His music became my music, his hobbies became my hobbies. And because we've been together for 7 years, I thought, well, what did I do before I met you? What did I like before I met you? And honestly, I couldn't answer that question. So at the time, I thought that my burnout was the worst thing to ever happen to me. But it's in that period that my boss told me, yeah, but you're an HSP because you're exactly like my wife. And so you must be an HSP. And I didn't know what he meant. I had no clue what the letters were. If he had said highly sensitive person, then at least I could have done something with the individual words. But he said HSP, and I thought, I don't even know if I need to be offended. But it stayed with me. And when I came back to my workstation, I decided to Google it. And that was my first step into the journey of self-discovery, of finding myself. And like you, I agree, it's an ongoing journey that I don't think will ever stop, because we are so much. And every time I discover a new thing about myself, I always say I'm like a huge jigsaw puzzle, and I'm all jumbled, and I'm finding puzzle piece after puzzle piece. And I don't like labels, and I don't like boxes, and I don't like to be put in there. But discovering that I'm an HSP, for one, it made me feel like, oh, I'm not weird, I'm not strange, there are more people like me. I'm not the only one that's like this, that's feeling like this, thinking like this. Because for the longest time I thought I was alone, because nobody around me seemed to be like me and seemed to value the same things or think along the same lines. So I hear that a lot with my clients. You start to feel very lonely. And I can imagine, because you chose a nursing profession, a lot of highly sensitive people go into one a form of helping people. So at least a nurse, maybe you were around more people that were at least a bit similar to you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess as a highly sensitive person, it was easy for me to channel that energy in that way, like very intuitive. You see a lot of nurses out there now that they have a more of an analytical, logical kind of mind, and they're not intuitive. And to be a good nurse, you have to be intuitive. So I was using my intuitive abilities that way, and the way that I cared for people, and I absolutely love that I got to do that. That was, I write about this in my book. That was one of the things I wanted to do from 5 years old. So that wasn't just something that I was forced into or that my family wanted me to do. That was my path. That was my path, although I didn't end up doing that until I was like 21. So a little bit older than the average person. And it was a struggle to get there, having left school like at 15. But so I really honor that career that I had, and it's a very, very special part of me. I'm just listening to the things that you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. When you said that you felt lonely, that's how I felt too, because I didn't have those people that believed the same things that I believed, or at least they didn't talk about it. I now know there are other nurses around me because they're all coming to me that feel the same. But back then, people didn't talk about those things. So
No.
now I feel more fulfilled in so many more ways. I have beautiful people coming into my life, and the souls that I'm connecting with, I'm so honored. Like yourself, I mean, we're very, very similar in a lot of ways, having talked off screen, and it's just lovely. I just love meeting new people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I could have done anything that helped me to get to know myself as much as becoming a business owner. It really
Mm-hmm.
confronts you with who you are and how you work, and what's important to you. And it's changed my life massively, but definitely for the better. So I'm really happy that you were one of those people that knew what they wanted to be. I know never did. Whenever people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say happy.
I love it.
Because I never had one thing, and I know a lot of people that come to me don't know what their thing is. So
Mm.
they come into contact with various things that for various reasons they choose as their profession. But it's not always, and more often not than is, the thing that they felt called to do deep down
Mm.
inside. So it's lovely to meet someone who did feel that calling already from the age of 5, but still at some point you felt like, okay, I've done this for a while, I really loved it, but I'm ready to move on to something different or bigger or a new.
Yeah. I always had this yearning inside of me that I had a higher purpose. And when I left nursing, I struggled with that part of me that loved nursing and had been on that journey, and I felt ungrateful, if
Mhm,
you know what I mean. I left and I'm like, what are you leaving for? You have this awesome, you've had this awesome career. What are you leaving for? So there was part of me that struggled, but I knew that it wasn't fulfilling me in that way any longer. I knew that it had served its purpose.
mhm,
And the reason why I had the calling to be a nurse was because of the kindness a couple of nurses showed me when I was 5 years old and I had my tonsils out.
mhm.
And I went, that's what I want to be. I want to be kind like those people. I want to help other people. So in essence, I'm actually doing that right now. I'm being kind. I'm helping other people find their own way back to their path to authenticity.
Mhm.
Mm.
I love it. It's a completely different experience from mine. I remember being
Mm.
hospital and my tonsils had to be removed. And in my memory, they tried to stick a needle this size into my leg, and it's actually where my needle phobia comes from. My fear of
Mm.
needles. So it's interesting to see how experiences can influence us for a long time in our lives.
And I think that I felt that way, and a lot of my story is about that, was because my mum's a beautiful mum, but she didn't know how to nurture in the way that I needed to be nurtured.
Mhm,
And that was because of her own self limitations and the life that she'd had, obviously.
mhm.
And the nurses showed me that, and I'm like, wow, I want to be like that.
That's beautiful.
You know?
And I agree.
And I didn't realize that then, but I realized that looking back, that must have been what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I recognize what you're saying. My mom is also a wonderful woman, but my mom is the product of her upbringing with the
Mm.
societal things and the family things that have been weighing on her and that colored the way she was towards me. And
Yeah.
I don't believe in blaming people. I don't blame
Mm.
my mom. I know she tried her best with the
Yeah.
knowledge of to her and the way that she was raised. Um, if I look at myself, I did miss a lot of things, and it would have been very different, my childhood, if my mom had been a very different person. But the fact is that she wasn't, and she did,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, she did the best. That's what I say. My mum did the best she could with what she had, and I wouldn't be the person I am today, yeah, if it had been different. And so I look at that, and there is no blame as well. And
Exactly.
I want to put that out.
Everything that we've experienced in our childhood, you can have various opinions about it. But in the end, it gave us the tools that we needed in order to be here for the people that we guide and that we help and that
That's
we
right.
tutor, right?
Yeah,
And that,
because the experiences that I've been through, unless I had been through this, I don't really think that I could be the catalyst to help other people as much as I can and have that understanding.
exactly.
Mm. And I used to think that, I haven't had a huge trauma in my life, so how do I get to be the spiritual person having this journey? But it's not about that. It doesn't matter how much trauma we've had or whatever we've had. We've all had different experiences that have led us to here. I mean, I think back to when I had my children. I had three very, very preemie babies, extremely preemie.
Mhm.
One was 25 weeks.
Wow.
Next one was 32, and then my daughter was 28 weeks. So we all have different things that we go through.
Mhm.
And what makes us resilient? What do we learn out of those experiences? I
Exactly.
guess my point is, it doesn't matter what journey that you're on, you're exactly where you need to be right now. That's
Yeah,
how I look at it.
exactly. And sometimes it can take a lot of work to be able to see it like that. And so if you're listening
Yes.
or watching to this right now and you think, well, that sounds awesome, I'm not there.
Yeah, exactly.
We get it. We've been there too, so don't worry about it. It's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. It just means that you still have some healing to do and some work to do, some inner work within yourself before you can see it in such a manner. And that's also okay. And like Mary says, we are
Mm,
at where we need to be on the path to
mm.
where we want to end up or where we're supposed to end up.
That's right. I think that's a very important point. I'm sitting here, like I'm 56 now, just the other day, and it's taken me this long to get where I am. You know, you might be younger and have the ability to go through the things you need to get through and get there a bit quicker. It's okay. It's everybody's journey is a different journey. It's not about comparing where you are. It's about, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, how can I change my life? How can I? Well, it's just about having a different perspective. It's about wanting to make a change. That's the first step, and realizing that, you can have something better for yourself. You can do better, and finding the person to work with, finding someone that you feel aligned with and that is authentic.
Yes,
I think that's the most important thing for me is I only hang out with authentic people these days.
me too.
I can spot them a mile away.
And nowadays, yes, I can, but I didn't used to. When I was so far
Mm,
away from myself that I had a career that was not really in line with who I was, I couldn't spot
yep.
those people. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that everybody that was kind to me, I called my friend very quickly because I was both very naive, but also very wanting of friends. So when you
Totally.
were to me, I thought, oh, you're my friend because you're being nice to me.
Mm,
That's not the case, and I had to learn that the hard way. And I see that a lot with my clients also. They get very
mm,
disappointed in other people and the way that
yeah.
they have been treated or are still being treated by other people, and that also can trigger loneliness.
Absolutely. And I think one of the lessons in my journey was that a behavior you walk past is a behavior you accept. So if you've got people that are treating you badly, then you're actually accepting that. But the hard part about that is you might know that you're accepting that, but what do you do about that? Because if you say goodbye to that relationship, you might be lonely, right? Is what you're
Mhm.
saying there. But at the end of the day, you're creating your own reality.
Mhm.
And that's what I teach people, you know, what's the worst that can happen if you let go of that? You might find someone better. You open the door for a better relationship or a better job or a better, you know. But when we're holding on to these things because we feel like we don't deserve anything better, there's so many things that go there, but it can be scary.
It can be, but I also have to be honest. I've never been as lonely in my life as when I was in my relationship and not being
Mm,
seen for who I really was, and my needs were not
yeah.
being met. I always make a distinction also between alone and lonely. Alone,
Mm-hmm.
that's the fact. I am sitting here now alone in my house. You're sitting alone where you are sitting. That's just a fact, right? You're alone. But lonely comes from a longing, comes from a desire, usually a longing to not be alone, or a desire to be loved, accepted, surrounded by
Mm,
people. And when that's not there, you're very focused on everything that's absent, and that triggers that feeling of loneliness. But it can also happen when you are surrounded by tons of people. You might not be alone, but you can be incredibly lonely on the inside.
absolutely. And I think that is part of people are not following their true north. They're not living the life that they're meant to be living. They're living a lie. They've got a mask on. They're not. Some people like might not even know, like you said before, what is it that lights me up? It's because they're so used to doing things for everybody else or following a path that's not the right one for them. It does take them a little bit of time to discover who they are. And
Mhm.
that's the kind of work that you do and I do. We help them
Yes.
tap back into that and to discover their inner power and start listening to their intuition and that's the thing that I really love. So yes, absolutely, you can be so lonely even if you have lots and lots of people around you. I mean,
Yeah.
I work less and less with people. You know, I had lots of people around me, but I'm less lonely than I was back then
Yes, most
because
definitely.
I'm
And
doing yeah,
that's, I
because
also
I'm
want
doing
to
the
say,
things that light up my soul. Sorry. Yeah.
that happens when we both get excited about a topic. But I wanted to say to the people that are listening and watching right now is that when you start changing, when you start on your path to authenticity, when you are finding out who you really are, it can mean that you lose people. It can even
Mm,
mean that you might lose everybody in your life. Don't be
yeah.
scared of this, because if you lose the people when you become you, it means that the people connected to you were not right for you. Because the people
Hmm.
that are connected to you, that love you and see you for who you really are,
Mm,
will be your biggest cheerleaders when you become more and more yourself. And if those people are not present in your life, then it's good for everybody to make room for people like that to
yeah.
come into your life. And you need to trust in the process, that when you go through with becoming more and more yourself, when you're finding yourself more and more, when you're shining your light, that you will become like an irresistible flame to people who are drawn to your energy, and you will make the most beautiful new friends that are actual friends, friends that are there for you whenever you need them, that will be there through thick and thin and will be your biggest cheerleaders in your life. That
And
is,
you know what? That is so, so true. I had my birthday on Sunday and I was out to dinner and I looked around the table and I had a handful of people, new and old friends,
mhm,
that I could honestly say got me and I get them and they're authentic friends.
mhm,
You know, and it's just so beautiful. This last year, the people that have come into my life that I feel that connection with and that they see me, I see them. Yeah, it's just lovely. And I've not had that before. I've had a
mhm.
friend here or there, but I was
Yeah.
always too afraid to open my heart to that. But as I've started to shine my light, as I've started to be the most truest version of me, which is, you know, finding my way, like my book is,
Mhm.
then that is happening for me. But I
exactly.
was always the person that would prefer to stay at home because I didn't want to be seen, because I didn't know who I was, really. I didn't really know who I was. And how could I go out into this world and shine my light if I really didn't know who I was?
Yeah, but how can you find a career that suits you when you don't really know who you
Mm,
are? How can you
yeah.
find a partner that fits you when you don't really know who you are? How can you lead a life that gives you joy and pleasure when it's not in line with who you really are? And that's why the work that we do is so important. So we are coming to the end of our time together, sadly, because I think we could chat for hours.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that there are a lot of people listening and watching to today's episode that feel like, oh, I wanna know more. And you all already know that you can always reach out and connect with me. And I offer free coffee chats to just talk and see what could be your next step. But you don't know Marie yet. So Marie, where can people find you?
Well, on all the social media channels, Facebook, I have Facebook, just Marie McAneney. Also on Instagram, it's Marie McAneney. And on LinkedIn, if you're a LinkedIn kind of person, I also have a podcast, my own podcast, which is Flipping the Script, Body, Mind, and Soul. And that's on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. My book's going to be coming out soon, but anywhere in my website's just mariemcaneney.com.au. So please come and join me. I also have a cruise coming up in November in Australia and a Vietnam retreat for Soul Medicine Women's Retreat in May in Hue in Vietnam, which we still have some spots on. So if you're wanting to connect with me and with other like-minded women, please feel free to reach out about that as well. I'd love to meet whoever. I'm all for meeting new like-minded people or anyone who just wants a hand.
I'll make sure that all the links that Marie just mentioned are below the show notes of this episode so that you have absolutely no trouble finding and connecting with both her and me if you're a new watcher. If you loved our episode today, it would mean the world to us if you would help spread the word by sharing it to your social medias and alerting people whom you think this content could be really beneficial. As always, I want to thank all of you for being here, for watching, for listening. I love that you're here and I love that you're so supportive. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And I love talking to you with a new guest on next HSP TV's episode. Bye for now and have an amazing rest of your day.